This is Folk Music and Beyond, 91.7 KALW San Francisco, and I'm JoAnn Mar, today doing our preview of next Saturday's San Francisco Free Folk Festival. It's Cray Van Kirk, our final guest, who is joining us in studio now. Welcome to KALW.
Thank you very much for having me down today.
Well, Cray, please
Yes.
start us off with one of your songs.
All right, here's a new one. I have some shows over in the UK this fall, and this one is for the Isle of Man, which is a little island between Great Britain and Ireland. There's a house about Kirkmichael out upon the Irish Sea, where it's written on the doorway where the windows used to be, that all who come inside will be tucked in for a lovely evening tea. There's a house about Kirkmichael and it's tilted on its side, drunk upon the tempest, surrounded by the tide, but solid of Byzantium where candled windows and the dark collide. There's a house about Kirkmichael and it's full of sleepy bears and a dozen shabby tigers who pounce upon the stairs, and out along the widow's walk Joe Strummer singing with the mescalaires. And while about Kirkmichael is a child who loves the dogs, and one who plants her flowers from the garden catalogues, and one who builds her dragons hidden softly in the heavy autumn fogs. Only heroes dare the kitchens, pies and pudding on the wall and floor. It's my favorite mystery, the pages of our history. And there's a house about Kirkmichael, and in it I will die, and I'll leave it for the children with the windows open wide. Poets and their patchwork quilted boats to set them free. These fragments I have shored against my ruin, and love shall not be lost in this summer-flowered house beside the sea.
Cray Van Kirk. He'll be making his debut at the San Francisco Free Folk Festival next Saturday, and he takes the stage at 2 o'clock. And Cray is based in Arcata, which is several hundred miles north of here. And before that, you lived in Alaska for 20 years, and you have an interesting backstory. You worked as a statistician with the Alaska Fish and Game Department.
I did. I was a statistical modeler. We wrote, just like Aki was a software engineer, we were talking about that.
Yeah.
He was writing libraries for the Adobe packages, and I was writing statistical fisheries models that look at how many fish are out there and what they're doing and how many supposedly are going to be around next year. And they use that to set fishery catch quotas year by year.
And you have a PhD in an obscure field, statistical modeling of population dynamics.
Yeah, fisheries population dynamics. That was the geek squad.
So I'm sure you were making a good living in your field. Why did you walk away from that and become a musician?
Maybe financially I should have stayed with the fisheries modeling, but just like Aki, there's a place where your soul lives and there's a place where it doesn't. And even though writing code is a lot of fun, it's not where my soul lives.
Yeah. So now you're a full-time musician again, and you have a new CD out called The Road to Elfland.
The Road to Elfland.
Can I get you to play a song from The Road to Elfland?
All right. I am a wandering traveler, my journeys they are long, and I read the stories of this life in music and in song. And sometimes out upon the road and sometimes in the sky, I look before what I will find to see if I can try to find the footsteps of the one who's maybe gone before, or maybe follows now behind in wisdom and in lore. And someday maybe we will meet upon a sunny day, strangers with familiar brands walking in the way. Hey lady, won't you walk with me down along the river to a wine dark sea, between the cradle and my graver years that won't be saved. So lady, won't you walk with me? Now some will dance on wings of gold and others take a fall. Some get by on feet of clay, some don't dance at all. The turning of the spinning ones and the circle of the moon all wind the seasons round again and play a piper's tune. And upwards from the sea they come, answering the call. Life upon its final run, the beginning of us all. Hey lady, won't you walk with me down along the river to a cold dark sea, between the cradle and my graver years that won't be saved. So lady, won't you walk with me? Wandering traveler, my journeys they are long, and I read the stories of this life in music and in song. And here I've come to sing for you of what has gone before, or maybe follows now behind in wisdom and in lore. And so now for the time we have, think upon the day when as strangers with familiar brands we'll meet along the way. Hey lady, won't you walk with me down along the river to a cold dark sea, between the cradle and my graver years that won't be saved. So lady, won't you walk with me?
My guest today is Cray Van Kirk, performing for us live in the KALW studios. And what was the name of that song?
That's called Walk With Me. It's actually one of the oldest tunes I have. It's on the road to Elfland. We had a good violin player come in and play with me on that. Like I said, it's the oldest tune I have, and the fact that I still play it either means that there's been no advancement in 30 years whatsoever, or maybe it was halfway decent to begin with. I haven't yet figured it out.
Your CD, The Road to Elfland, is your first studio recording in 20 years.
Yes, that's true.
So, after 20 years, was it a shock to return to the music business and find out how much has changed?
A lot has changed. I remember the first years that I was doing this and living in my van after quitting graduate school, I was booking shows from phone booths on the sides of the roads, and I don't know if phone booths even exist anymore. Yes, things have changed enormously, and originally I had not intended to make any more hard copy CDs. I didn't want any more stuff. I didn't want anything headed for the landfills. And I had all these ideas of how I wanted to do things this time around, and some of those ideas turned out to be good, and some of them just didn't meet with the reality of playing music today. And so I've had to change my mind and be adaptable and switch things around and everything is still in flux. Nobody knows where the rabbit's going to come out of the hat.
And you've decided to make your music available for free.
Well, that's one of the things that I have changed over the years. Originally, coming from the programming end of things, I'm a big fan of the Linux operating system and free and open source software. And so I didn't want to be running around on the internet trying to who downloaded my tune? I need to go get that. I just wanted to say, forget that. I'm just going to give everything away. The assumption was that I would be able to make enough off of ticket sales at the shows to do this. And while I still agree with the idea that we should not have everything we do be oriented towards money, there also is a little bit of the need to pay your bills and your mortgage and things like that. So people can still go onto my website and stream things for free, or they can buy it to download it to their mobile device or whatever, or they can go to the usual suspects, Spotify or not Pandora. Pandora rejected me. I was not Pandorical enough. But that's one of the things I've had to change my mind on. While I still highly encourage people to use free and open source software, creative works are different. And even Richard Stallman, Peter, you back there making the wave sign about Linux and free operating systems. Even Richard Stallman said that no, creative works are different than software or utility software. So I'm struggling with the fact that I actually charge money for my CDs and such now. I still feel I should give it all away, but I'm not rich, so I can't.
Well, you can always go to your audience for future projects through crowdsourcing. That's how a lot of musicians
you
are
can.
doing it.
And the other thing that really changed my mind about charging money for music was the whole idea that music has been so devalued. And I have friends who got quite put out with me when I was trumpeting my free music trumpet bandwagon thing, and they were like, dude, what the hell? And I didn't see it from their point of view, and it's true that music has been so devalued. We'll spend $5 at Starbucks on a Frappa-Wappa Smappuccino, but we won't pay for music to have as a CD or to download to our computer or our phones and such. And this diminishment of creativity and art, especially in today's political climate in the United States, is something that I think should definitely be specifically counteracted and addressed, which is one of the reasons I have changed my mind as the years have gone by.
My guest today is Craig Van Kirk, and can we hear you another song from you?
Yes, speaking of the political climate today, this is an angry song, which is hard for me because when I grew up in my house, you were never supposed to be angry. But with the developments in Alabama and other states recently in the last couple weeks, along with just pretty much everything else, this is one of those songs that just kind of came out from there one morning.
Oh my fathers, the seeds that you have sown. You made your war across the sea and then you brought it home. And all the children suffer for the gold that you have sought. It's not against your freedom but your greed that I have fought. Oh my fathers, I will now condemn your hatred of my mothers, of my sisters and my friends, your imaginary demons, woman, black or queer, your manufactured outrage against your shadow fear. Oh my fathers, I am a straight white man, but the reins of power that you hold I will not take in hand. I reject the lies you've written, I reject the works you've wrought, I reject your profit margins, for love cannot be bought. Oh my daughter, wear your dangerous coats. Oh my sisters, wear your dangerous coats. Oh my mothers, wear your dangerous coats. With pockets full of love. Oh my fathers, your time is at an end. But nothing will I take from you, although I am your son. My hands are for my lovers and for green and growing things. My time is meant for laughter and the songs that children sing. Oh my fathers,
singer-guitarist Cray Van Kirk, live in the KALW studios this afternoon. So, Cray, many of the songs you write are very much inspired by the old British ballad tradition.
Yes. I think the things that that change our mind are unfortunately not science and facts. They are myths and myth systems and emotional response to a whole set of imagery that we have this whole, we have an entire culture behind each and every one of us in addition to our family upbringing that makes us respond to things. And I read a wonderful quote by a climate scientist a while back, and he said, we thought all we had to do was do the science and publish the papers, and people would say, oh, this is an issue. He said, but no, that's not true. You need artists, and you need poets, and you need creators to have an emotional response, which is not something that science does. And that's another reason that I stopped being a scientist and went back to being a musician, is because I think that in the 21st century we are going to need a whole new slew of myths and renewed imagery that galvanizes on an emotional level to address, 21st century is going to be kind of complicated. It's started off that way. And we're not going to charge over the hill because of a paper that says, the statistical uncertainty of the IPCC model, and that's not going to do anything. What will make us charge over the hill is when we have this emotional tug at our guts. And for those of us who are in the myth and fantasy world, we'll charge over the hill when Captain Marvel comes down and shines and says it's time to go.
Well, now, a lot of these old ballads were very sensational and violent. They were
Yes.
full of murder and mayhem and incest. And the central figures were, royalty, kings and queens, lords and ladies, and
Yes.
knights of the realm. And, they weren't behaving in a particularly heroic or admirable way.
Not in the ballads, they weren't.
Now, the songs you write take that ballad tradition, but you're retelling those stories, and you're removing the violence and the sensational elements.
To some degree. I'm trying to think if I have any songs that are very, very stereotypical, white male, knight defeating an enemy, and I'm not sure I have any as of yet.
The central figures in your songs, unlike those old ballads, are truly heroic figures who are kind and decent and perform good deeds. These are qualities I don't find too much of in the old child ballads.
No, not in child's ballad. Every page of child's ballads is soaked in somebody's blood, mostly from like babies that have been carried off by
Right.
whatever. But that's exactly the point, is that I went to see Wonder Woman, the new film. Mm-hmm. And I was so thrilled because right in front of me, these two little girls, they were like 8 and 9. And they were there with their mom and dad to see Wonder Woman. And they had their Wonder Woman outfits on. And I loved it because they could look at the screen and say, that's me. They didn't have to look at a male hero and say, well, okay, that's a generalized hero, and I'll kind of find myself in that. No, they can look at the screen and say, that's me. And everybody deserves to look at the screen or read the page and say, that is me. And that's why I write these songs, Midnight Commander and I Am a Knight, because for too many years, the only people looking at the screen have been white men, me, We're all the heroes on the screen, and everybody else has to kind of fit themselves in between the cracks, and I think that is completely wrong.
And I'm just curious. I mean, do you ever get any criticisms that your songs may be a little too idealistic or Pollyanna, that the kind of heroism and selflessness in your songs doesn't really exist in real life?
I don't think my songs are well known enough to have gotten any criticism yet. I think that may very well be a criticism at some point, and I think certainly when I play them, it is extremely vulnerable. I feel totally naked. Because it is so idealistic, it is so Pollyanna. It's not this rough, cool, hey, how you doing? It has this quality of unabashed idealism. And I think that's the only way to do it. I don't think you can be idealistic and be cool. I don't think you can be idealistic and hold anything back. You have to toss it all out there and say, this is it. And the idealism will be tempered by practicality when we go to implement practical solutions. But we can't compromise the idealism. We have to distill it and understand that when it gets implemented, things may change and shift a little bit. But our heroes are our heroes precisely because they are idealistic. The myth allows them to succeed with that idealism, but the most interesting heroes are the ones with lots of cracks. The most interesting heroes are the ones who have flaws and fail time and time again. And in like the Midnight Commander is an insane old black man who rides the subways at night. But his idealism is reflected in everybody else who meets him, and they say, yes, we want to be that. And that's why I have, the T-shirts that says the Midnight Commander was here. And everybody who takes up arms against this thing that kind of keeps trashing the planet and everybody else with it, they become the Midnight Commander. And I think that's more important than anything because we need to feel like we make a difference.
So your songs are all about redefining what it means to be a hero in the 21st century.
Yes.
Okay, Cray, we're running out of time. We
Okay.
have time for one more song, and I have a request. Can you do I Am a Knight?
I will do I Am a Knight, yes. Which is a good example of rewriting the myth.
The night was riding lonely, and the road was winding long. The sun had barely risen, frost was shining in the dawn. His sword was sharp, his lance was keen, and his armor burnished bright. And as he rode, he sang with all his might. He sang, hey, 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 well, I am a knight. I am a knight, I am a knight, said he. Of all the kingdoms of the world, no finer thing to be. And he'd held the vigil rightly, he'd watched his arms by night, and in the morning came the king and made him there a knight. Sent forth a mighty hero to defend the castle walls, and all who walk within its mighty halls. For I am a knight. Blood red was the sunrise, and blood red was the field. The knight lay fierce about him, and he brought the foe to yield. And those who fought, he cut them down, and he left them where they lay. Then he took the road to fight another day. Oh, hey, 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 well, I am a knight. I am a knight, he tried to find the song, but silence overtook him as he sadly rode along. And under midday shadows, well, the night began to yield. Perhaps my spurs are better served than fighting in the field. No castle wall to build or guard, no blood to stain the soul, but blankets for the winter and food in every bowl. For I am a knight. The farmer had no harvest plow, so the knight gave him his sword. His lance became a bargeman's pole to help him cross the ford. His armor turned to cups and bowls, his shield a chalice bright, his helm a lantern shining in the night. Oh, hey, 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 hey. The night was riding lonely, the road was winding long. The sun was slowly sinking, with darkness coming on. No sword, no lance to take the field, in rags against the cold. But as he rode, he sang out brave and bold. He sang, hey, 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 well, I am a knight. I am a knight, I am a knight, said he. Of all the kingdoms of the world, no finer thing to be. And the night was riding lonely, the road was winding long. The sun had barely risen, frost was shining in the dawn. Her sword was sharp, her lance was keen, her armor burnished bright. And as she rode, she sang with all her might. She sang, hey, 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 hey. Well, I am a knight, I am a knight, I am a knight, said she. Of all the kingdoms of the world, no finer thing to be. I am a knight, I am a knight, I am a knight, said she. Of all the kingdoms of the world, no finer thing to be.
Craven Kirk, thanks for coming in today,
Oh,
all
you
the
so much
way
for
from
having me.
Arcata. Wow. And we'll close with another song by Craven Kirk, a song written in the old ballad style about an unlikely hero, the Midnight Commander, not a king or a queen, but a crazy old homeless black man, a new hero for the 21st century. For folk music and beyond, I'm JoAnn Mar. Thanks for listening.
He patrolled the New York subway, the Q train Broadway line, from 96th on down to Coney Isle. His superhero mask was red, it was a pair of underwear, with rubber boots and cape a kitchen towel. He knew the nightly riders, and he'd call them all by name, and they made sure his nightly fare was paid. While his history was hidden and his origins obscure, on a ragged subway seat, a New York hero he was made. If angry words were thrown against two women holding hands, or a homeless man was kicked and put to shame, if someone with a turban was pushed around and cursed, his eyes would flash and loudly he'd exclaim. He'd say, I am the Midnight Commander. Hey, I am a flame, I'm a beacon in the night. I am the Midnight Commander. Oh, set aside your hatred and put aside your fear, for the Midnight Commander is here. Oh, the Midnight Commander is here. Now everyone he challenged, they felt his gentle power, and they'd falter in their hatred and their pain, standing quiet, wondering at the seasons of the heart, and an old man in pajamas on the train. And the riders of the subway, the Q train Broadway line, stood proud and tall when he would pass them by. They'd smile at one another and they'd give a mighty cheer whenever they would hear his ringing cry, when he said, I am the Midnight Commander. Hey, I am a flame, I'm a beacon in the night. I am the Midnight Commander. Oh, set aside your hatred and put aside your fear, for the Midnight Commander is here. Oh, the Midnight Commander is here. Now all good deeds are punished, and someone finally made a call to New York's Metro Clinic with a tale. A bed check found one empty with the window open wide, and footprints headed towards the subway rail. And so the lords of Bedlam came, each one dressed in white, and they found him riding on his nightly fare. They called him by his given name, and they took away his soul and brought him back to his confused despair. But I am the Midnight Commander, he said as they gently led him off into the night. I am the Midnight Commander, who will keep them from their hatred and rescue them from fear. If the Midnight Commander's not here, if the Midnight Commander's not here. Now the New York City subway, the Q train Broadway line, gallops through the night just like before. But at 96th and 2nd, all the riders take a stand, for New York's Don Quixote was no more. And on the empty platform, as the train goes on its way, if you listen very closely, you can hear the voices say, they say, remember, remember, don't give in to hatred or to fear. Remember, oh, remember, the Midnight Commander was here. Well, it started in Manhattan. It was a single burning flame. It spread to Queens, the Bronx, and Brooklyn. Staten Island was the same. Macy's ran out of red underwear, and rubber boots could simply not be found. Words were carved upon the subway walls, and 1,000 voices thundered with a sound. And the words said, I am the Midnight Commander. Hey, I am a flame, I'm a beacon in the night. I am the Midnight Commander. Oh, set aside your hatred and put aside your fear, for the Midnight Commander is here. Oh, the Midnight Commander is here.